Hey everyone, welcome to WP Product Talk. Today I want to talk about the biggest threat to any sales business is shrinking markets. But what happens when your entire ecosystem is shrinking? For WordPress product businesses, we depend deeply on the success of WordPress itself. So when there is talk of shrinking market share or slowed growth of WordPress, every product owner's heart skips a beat, or maybe 5 beats. If your heart is skipping right now, then this show is for you. This is WP Product Talk, a place where every week we bring you insights in product marketing, business management and growth, customer experience, product development, and more. It's your go-to podcast for WordPress product owners by WordPress product owners. And now, enjoy the show. Welcome, Amber. How are you doing?
Doing great. I'm super excited about this very timely and important topic, which is why we brought not just one guest like we have, but 4 amazing people that are going to share some really great thoughts with us on today's show.
Absolutely. I'm excited. So first, we're going to be talking about data. Is WordPress market share actually shrinking, and how do we know this? Does it even matter for our businesses if it's shrinking or not? For that, we've invited Joost de Valk and Noel Tock. Both of them have presented compelling data on this question, and we're excited to have them both here.
Yep. And then after we do that, we are going to be talking about what WordPress product owners should actually do about shrinking market share. Is there anything we can do to contribute to fixing the problem? If there is one, we'll find out when we go into the data. And how can we help increase adoption of WordPress as a whole as we adapt our marketing techniques or other things as product owners? So I think this should be a great show.
Yeah.
Who's going to be talking about that with us?
For that question, we thought there was no one better to talk about those things than Miriam Schwab from Elementor and Rich Tabor, product manager at Automattic.
So let's get started and welcome Yoast and Noel.
Hi, guys.
Hello,
hey, how's
both
it going?
of you.
Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting us.
Do you want
This is
to
going to
give
be a
each...
fun example of like talking over each other. We're going to do our best.
We've known each other for like 12 years, so it makes sense.
Yeah. For anyone who has lived under a rock, would you like to give a quick blurb about your backgrounds, who you are, what you do in WordPress world before we start talking numbers?
So I'm the founder of a company called Yoast, which you might know in the WordPress space. We sold that in 2021, started investing into other companies and building other fun new products. So both an investor and product owner of my own new products.
Cool.
No, how about you?
I am a co-founder of Human Made, which is one of the longest standing, I guess, enterprise WordPress agencies around. And a number of years back, we also decided to launch our own enterprise hosting, just tailored for really large platforms, really large sites, called Altis. So we do the 2 of those things, and that's really what occupies most of my WordPress space these days.
Nice. I have a follow-up question for both of you then. Why do you care about market share? Like, why did this thing become a thing? Like, Yoast, your blog about it is obviously prolific. Noel, your presentation and some of your tweets about it have also been widely shared around. What made you both interested in this subject at all? Yoast first.
Well, so both when you're investing and when you're building a product in the WordPress space, the market share or whether WordPress is growing or not has a deep impact on how easy it is to get people to buy the software that you want to sell them, and especially as sites that have been online for a while don't tend to change plugins as much as new sites. New sites coming online is actually very important too. It's super important to know that people are working on their websites, actively working on their websites. And that's why I was interested and started following. I've also got a slightly wider view of not just WordPress per se, but also open source in general. I've always been interested in how well is open source doing, and well, how is it doing against the other CMSs out there. So that's why I started blogging about that first biannually, and slowly more and more often.
Excellent.
What about
Noel,
you,
what
Noel?
about you? Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a multiple kind of reasons, I'd say. We've been on this kind of up-only trajectory for a very long time. When we kind of started off and we had this honeymoon phase and we had custom post types that were so cool. And at some point, the REST API came. There was talks about this block editor thing, and everything was on the up and up. And it just felt like it slowed down in the last few years. Not necessarily just looking at the data, but just the conversations I was having and the quality of conversations. So I just wanted to, it felt like there was a need to kind of reconcile. And then, there's numbers, what we traditionally called market share today, which I feel, has kind of hovered around the same region, does well here, maybe not so well there, whatever, but it has kind of like been at the same place. And my curiosity is, does that, is that a maturity that declines, or is that a pause and then gas again?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think it would be interesting for each of you to give maybe an overview of what your reports are. I know we've referenced, some tweets, and Yoast has a CMS market share report, which we can throw a link to in the chat, just maybe high level for people if they want to take a look at these more, sort of sharing what data points are you looking at when you're trying to assess if market share is growing in WordPress or not?
So for me, my report is based on the HTTP archive dataset, which in itself is based off the Chrome UX dataset, which immediately should make you pause for a tiny bit, because what that dataset is actually important. It's sites that get enough traffic for Chrome to want to report on them publicly in the Chrome UX dataset, which means that these sites are not tiny sites. They're usually a bit bigger. Even though there's like 13 million sites in that data set right now, it's still only a fraction of the entire internet. And not every site will be included in it. And because it's basically the top sites to some degree, these results are also to some degree a measure of market share in terms of traffic. So if WordPress sites overall do a bit less well in search, for instance, then you might see these sites drop a bit. If they do better in search, then you might see them go up a bit, because more sites might make the cut. So the thing
so
is that
it's less about usage than SEO.
Well, no, it is both, but the problem is that the data set changes every month. So you're not comparing apples to apples every month. You're just comparing the percentage within the data set every month. So I think it's relatively reliable. But when we're talking about minute changes, and when we say that WordPress is declining based on the numbers that I shared there, if you can go up, I don't know who's controlling the scrolling, Matt, I think, then you'll see that WordPress looks like it's declining a tiny bit. But I think, honestly, that there's too much uncertainty in the data to be able to say that clearly.
Yeah.
So for people who can't see this, it's WordPress is up at the top with market share on this. It says 35.26%, and you found a month over month down of 0.28%.
Yeah,
and that's what you're saying. You think it's in like the error margin that might not actually be true.
Yeah, it's very possible that might change in another direction the month after. It's not like a very steep decline in any way. And it's also like these numbers are pretty hard to do well. I'm constantly tweaking them. I found that when I was not running the Elementor numbers, for instance, there was a gap in the Elementor numbers, and I was like, that's not logical. There's no reason why Elementor would suddenly start dropping when it's been growing like forever. So I actually ran them again this week in another way with help from some of the people behind the HTTP archive, who are luckily all very helpful in running these queries. It's a huge data set, so it's actually hard to query it well. And came to the conclusion that Elementor isn't shrinking at all. In fact, it's still growing in much the same pace that it has been over the years. So this data is a good, like, a large differences in it will actually mean something, but minute changes of like less than a 0.5% don't really mean much.
Yeah, I do like that one view though. That's a lot more over the last year-ish. It does show WordPress increasing market share over the last while, which is a lot of the question that folks have.
I have thoughts about that, but I'll let Noel go first.
Yeah, let's hear from Noel. I also have a chart here I'm going to put up on the screen. Noel, how do you think through this from a data perspective?
So to connect back to what Yoast is saying, because he's talking about market share, the most relevant here, I think, not the actual obvious market share line, not the pink line, but the blue bar chart, which is just detecting new WordPress websites coming online. That's really what I've been looking at, feeling in the market, and that's what I sort of pursue. So even on a quarterly basis, I'll take the new WordPress websites inside of the top 1 million on built with, which is a very different data set, I think, than what Yoast is looking at. His is more comprehensive in that regard. I'm really looking at the top million, and I'll look through every line item, just kind of scan down. I'll often like check the sites, see what they're at. Especially if they're large companies or big brands, I'll see where is the install. So the Donald Trump site, for instance, has now registered WordPress, but that is on one subdomain for a single page, created as a landing form type thing, just a lead gen kind of capture. It's nowhere else. Same for Delta Airlines, where we see that for Delta flight products, DFP.Delta or whatever. So there's a lot. There's almost like a ratio, which like I don't have an exact number on. Like I've looked at this in the past where I've seen almost 3/4 or 2/3 of new WordPress sites in a given period over the last year anyway have been on subdomains as opposed to main domains. And that is something in terms of, I don't want to say the word quality, but maybe like relevancy or weight that like the site gets, like how does that feed into market share? Because we talk about market share in a very distinct way in terms of WordPress being detected anywhere on a domain, and then we receive that domain's entire worth, so to speak, as a binary. It's there or it's not. And in that regard, like I just have questions or thoughts, for myself at least, like, is that something that's improving, declining? Are we eating more of the site, less of the site? Yeah.
Interesting.
I am curious though. So
I want to clarify for my data.
Yeah,
it's
please.
front pages only.
So, you're only front pages. Interesting. Yeah.
That's very valuable.
Yeah, that is very interesting. So, and
sorry, just to
what
clarify
you're
one
looking
thing.
at with your data, Noel, I was just going to ask, you're looking at top million, meaning like largest sites. So it's more skewed towards enterprise, right?
I mean, and yes, and large sites. Like sometimes you have high traffic sites which are not necessarily
High traffic
enterprise.
publishers or something. Yeah.
So just a
Good
clarification
blogs,
for Yoast, and on his data set, is front page also a front page of a subdomain, or are all subdomains kicked out?
Subdomains are included.
Right. Okay.
Which is because otherwise things like WordPress.com subdomains would never make it.
No, then that's very important. That helps me a lot, because if we had pure domains, like it would feel it wouldn't be like a true data set to kind of represent, but it would give us momentum, I guess, in a certain direction.
Yeah, no, but so it is subdomains are included and that, well, to some degree is also questionable, but not for WordPress.com, for instance. A lot of WordPress.com sites probably won't make the traffic requirements.
Agreed.
So I think that's interesting because Yoast, you think it is growing. Noel, based on this, do you think that it's growing or not growing market share?
Yeah, that actually we wanted to kick that off there with kind of like a TLDR. Like, what is your quick take, real quick? Noel, what's your quick take? Is WordPress market share declining?
I don't think it's declining nor it's increasing. But what I do think is that market share, as we talk about it today, is a lagging indicator, because to make a purchasing decision, to even like research CMSs, to pick one, to install it, or then pick one after, to hire an agency or do it yourself or whatever it is, that whole time to launch, and then time to detection, that can be quite like that. That's a significant enough gap that attention is a more important indicator than adoption in some ways for people who operate in the market. And that's where the word that's like quite key to me, I guess, is excitement. I'm missing the excitement of WordPress, and I'm not feeling that in the market. I think we can do that. I think a lot of that is around the product marketing and how we repackage WordPress for certain verticals, because this one size fits all means that in every single vertical, we're being displaced by campaigns that have paid or have received a certain amount of funding and can go after us, right? We've seen that with Contentful, for example, over a number of years in the headless space with an inferior product and displacing WordPress completely. And still today, we have no integration with Next.js or anything like that. So I think, I'll let Yoast, take that from there, but, that's kind of my sort of challenge.
I actually fully agree.
Quick summary there. Basically, you're saying it's not necessarily declining, but it's not increasing, and the energy is lagging. It's almost, I think maybe the best word is just stagnating. The growth is stagnating. Is that the summary?
To end the summary, I would say I foresee a decline, and we can, and I don't mean like a ridiculous sort of like, it can be a very kind of tapering off sort of decline. But some sectors can still outperform and grow. So I think government will perform. I think EDU, higher education will perform. I think publishing will continue to perform. And that's what I see in terms of net new sites when I look at like the last quarter. It's predominantly in that kind of sector. And then the rest is kind of up for grabs in that regard, at least from like what I see. But I'd love to get Yoast's opinion on that too.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, Yoast, first off, what's your quick take? Is WordPress market share declining?
No, I agree with Noel. I think it's stagnant. And I actually agree with the markets he mentioned too. With two additions, I think that there is a huge opportunity on the e-commerce side with Woo, and we actually see Woo drive growth. And I think that to some degree, some products are actually driving WordPress as a whole forward, and Elementor is a very good example of that. And I think that once we realize that, I think that the only logical conclusion is that the fact that marketing of WordPress itself has actually always been a pain point, is now starting to actually hurt us.
If on that graph that Noel has, you have a search interest that is going down, and I'm curious where that's coming from. Is that literal searches for like WordPress?
That's just Google Trends. I mean, really universal kind of very macro curve. WordPress, just the word.
But the WordPress, the word, not the longer tail like.
No, it's
WordPress WooCommerce.
I think it's a term that I searched as opposed, because sometimes you can take a theme or a brand on Google Trends, and in this case, this is really just a term, just a raw term. And I think this is the line you often see from many people in terms of what they post. When I talked to people 10 years ago and said, I do WordPress, they're like, oh, the website builder. And now they're like, what is that? So I think like that's the kind of analogy of of what this chart is.
Well, I think, and Yoast, I'm sure you might have thoughts on this. Sorry about that, y'all. I'm sure you might have thoughts on this, but I think the way people have searched or are searching is very different now. It might be that how people are finding WordPress is not because they've heard of WordPress, but they might be searching like website builder for flower shop or something. I don't know, right? like we're very like long tail in how we search, especially if we're doing voice search or things like that. And so perhaps this indicator is not as scary as it is because there's other searches, getting at what we're talking about, like Elementor or something. People might literally be looking for Elementor or looking for WooCommerce, or if they saw, a commercial for a hosting company during the Super Bowl, I don't know, they might go look for that hosting company and then get introduced to WordPress there. I don't know if you guys have thoughts on that and the search and whether this is worrying, this line.
I think it is worrying, and I agree with Noel that it's the lack of excitement around the product is what causes this. And funnily enough, and I don't want to like whisk away everything that Rich is probably going to tell you about, but I don't actually think it's I don't think it's a product problem. I think very much that it's a marketing problem. And if you actually, I was just opening Google Trends right now, looking at the numbers. The graph that Noel has is actually going a bit up again for WordPress, but both WooCommerce and Elementor are at the same size and they're stable over time. I just feel that if you look at this from a big perspective, then WordPress can do what a lot of these competitors that we are losing to can do. Absolutely. But we're not telling those stories. And what's happened traditionally is every once in a while we'd have an economic crisis somewhere, and people would start cutting costs and start looking at what is the cost of the software I'm using, and WordPress would actually do fairly well at that. Because people would look at like, hey, how can we do this more cost effectively? We've not had that for a bit. We might at some point get that again, and then people might look at that again. I think it's actually fairly funny to see that Shopify has literally doubled their prices last year and basically not lost market share. And it's not a cheap solution anymore. It's actually a fairly expensive solution to run an e-commerce site.
Yeah.
And
Webflow too. Similar.
Yeah, they're all becoming more and more expensive. And what I do think is that we also have a bit of a branding problem in that I think very many people don't even know that their sites run on WordPress.
No,
it's just a system they got from their host.
Yeah.
I would add to what Yoast is saying, and also to what you said, Amber, before in terms of like this long tail thing. Like I think we're way past that. If you look at like a Squarespace or a Wix or whatever, like that's not a website builder anymore. That's like a SMB operating system, right? You do your reservations, you take transactions. Like if you look at the cohorts on the Wix annual reports, quarterly, or no, it's the annual reports, and you see how many transaction dollars they're bringing in per customer and how that's ramping up. It's insane. Like they are just running a part of that business. It's not a website builder anymore. That's the lead gen. So that's not the competitive thing. And what that does is when you're a hosting company doing WordPress, and you also have to be the one selling WordPress and packaging WordPress, and then bringing that to market, and then telling the customer how to run a successful like SMB platform or whatever, forget it. And that's why I think, when Yoast and I talk about product marketing, packaging, marketing, all these things, we need to provide a much higher level of that, so that all the vendors in the space can also benefit from that.
And if you actually look at the market, the search trends for our competitors, then for instance, Wix is going up quite hard, and Squarespace. But what you have to realize, and when I did this, I think a year and a half ago, and I should probably run it again at some point, is I ran a comparison of the market share numbers and the annual results of those companies. And what you see is that for most of those companies, every percentage of market share is worth between $1 and $2 billion a year.
Mm.
Tasty.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually know because a friend of mine was VP growth at Shopify for quite a while, and his team was not a couple of people; it was hundreds of people.
Yeah,
and we've basically disbanded our marketing team recently yet again, and replaced it with something else, and we basically have no marketing function for .org. So,
well, we do have a WordPress YouTube director now.
well, Jamie
Like,
is doing some of the best marketing that we've ever seen for WordPress,
Mhm.
but we need to do much more of that, and we also need to approach different categories with different stories. In a way, what I think we're ready for in Linux, they went with different distributions. So you have all these different companies that have different distributions of Linux. To a degree, what Human Made is doing with Altis is a distribution of WordPress with a lot of add-ons for specific types of customers. I think the market is ready to do more of that. I think Elementor is that to some degree as well. I saw someone in chat say it's a city within a country of WordPress, a big city within a country of WordPress. I think that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And some companies like Yoast was in the past would actually run across almost all of those because it's basically a utility. But for most types of products in the WordPress space, there's different areas where
They're too siloed.
Yeah, and I do think that we need to get much better at that marketing, and do the packaging in a way where we actually fix that. And I think we also have another problem in that a lot of people are on WordPress and might use it, but they don't really use it. If you see the amount of WordPress sites that are stale, that are on old versions, that are not upgrading, there's a problem there too. And to be honest, the recent CrowdStrike incident with Automattic updates causing a lot of mayhem is not doing that a whole lot of good, because it's actually people thinking, hey, automatic updates might not be a good idea, but we need something that helps us push the ecosystem forward to newer versions. Because if you're still stuck on WordPress 4.0 and you think that is WordPress, then you're never going to get excited about WordPress.
Yep.
Yeah, there was a comment in here that I think was really interesting. The perception of WordPress as a, quote, old platform is a problem because of the appearance of the admin UI, which I'm sure we can talk more about when we have Rich on. But it reaffirms the idea of it being old. And I don't know if you thought, like, is that something that you're hearing in the community, is that it's a dated platform. It can't do what my business needs.
I will say,
I disagree.
I know. I hear people say that all the time. I think that's WordPress inside speak, honestly, because I don't know how many of them have logged into a Wix site. It's not a beautiful
Or any
admin.
enterprise headless solution, which has come out last year and has tons of funding and is supposedly like the next gen solution. No, it's not that.
They're all ugly. I mean, I've never seen a CMS that is not
admin
ugly.
UIs are hard. They're hard to do.
Yoast doesn't discriminate. Everything's ugly.
They're all trash.
The thing that I think is really interesting about this market share issue in question, and Noel, you sort of started to get to this talking about, well, there's some sectors where it's not a problem, right? Like government or university. Of course, they move slow. They're not going to change their platform as quickly as small business owner might. But I do think that there's been a problem in the last few years with WordPress not really knowing who it's talking to and what it's building and what features are being released and how they're being tested first. Because, I mean, we work with a lot of government and higher ed and large companies, and they don't want all the fancy stuff. Like, they want to be able to create a very walled off, very specific set of tools for their content authors that do not allow the content authors to make mistakes or break the brand colors or add accessibility problems or whatever it might be, right? And that's such a different audience than I'm a DIYer who just wants to build something that looks cool for my hobby project.
I'll say
And
that
it's a problem, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we're running against time, so I'll kind of say the last thing. I think universally, regardless if you're talking enterprise or DIY, it's about excitement at a very fundamental level. That's the North Star.
Yeah.
We don't need more features. We need to inspire the market. We need to be bold. We once again need to be in the spotlight. And I think that's attainable. If you combine the strengths of WordPress with the best practices of fast growing and emerging tech SaaS companies, you'll propel WordPress onto a new S curve. And I wouldn't only like support such a push. I try my best to contribute to something if we actually decided to do that. Because software as WordPress is actually like fundamental to the future of humanity, because I witness that every day. So I think it's a very important thing to fight for, and I hope that we find a way as a group to look past whatever roadmaps we have set in stone today and reimagine the future starting very soon, because the ad spend has turned back on for these proprietary vendors as of 3 months ago.
Absolutely. Excellent conversation. Thank you both so much for your contributions. And we're going to kick you off for now and get on to what do we actually do about all this information.
Can we kick the other two off? Can we keep going? No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry, we invited you, but you don't actually get to come on. No, I think we all really...
Yoast was supporting that. You can see in his eyes. He's like, yeah, no, I think that's a good idea.
Well, for all that Yoast teed up for Miriam, we have to have her come on and share all the expertise and secrets.
I'm looking forward to hearing what they have to say.
Absolutely.
Well, and I also want to hear how they do product management for basically 20 different sectors at least.
That's impressive.
We might have some hard questions for Rich, honestly. He's
Go for it.
So.
He's up for that.
All right, well, we'll see you both in a little bit.
Amber, that was really great. Both of them brought some really good info. I thought it was really interesting. I think the summary I took away was that the WordPress product market share is not decreasing, but it is stagnating. And I almost wanted to get Noel to be a little bit more specific. He says it's not decreasing now. It almost sounds like he's like, but it's going to for sure. Like he was like projecting the sky is falling, not today, but in the future. And I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, the indicator that he's seeing it more on subdomains or less important URLs than the primary URL is something probably to be concerned about. Like, why do people not see WordPress as the solution for their main revenue driving site and only for like, a little landing page we need to collect leads from or a blog or our internal company thing, right? I think that is probably something that we need to be worried about. But as product owners, I think we're all solution focused, right? So I think this is a good moment to bring in Miriam and Rich and talk about what we do about it, what that looks like.
Absolutely. And here they are. Hey folks, welcome.
Hi.
Thanks for being here. That sounded super hungry. Like, oh man, they really set the scene in a way. Hey, we'd love you both to do some quick introductions. We know you all. We think everybody knows you guys, but probably not.
Just in case.
Why don't we do real quick introductions. Miriam, how about you?
Okay. Hi, I'm Miriam Schwab. I'm head of WordPress relations at Elementor. I am formerly the co-founder of a company called Static, and it was acquired by Elementor over 2 years ago. So I've been here since. And before that, I founded and managed a WordPress development agency for 13 years. So I've been in the WordPress space for quite a while.
Awesome. Rich.
Hey, everyone. I'm Rich Tabor, product manager at Automattic, and I lean in on product design and engineering fronts every day, helping to drive the WordPress experience forward. Previously, I built and sold a number of WordPress products here and there.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Thanks so much. So I'm going to give away the whole spiel here, basically. We got two big questions for both of you, just so everybody in the comments knows. By the way, awesome comments, folks. Keep them coming. I really appreciate all the live action going on. But
we are going to put some of those up.
Yeah. We have a couple starred that we're going to bring up. So two big questions are, how can we increase adoption of WordPress as a whole? So the big takeaway there, actually, spoiler alert, is that WordPress isn't necessarily declining, but it does sound like there's less energy or there's less excitement that was previously the thing that was bringing a lot more adoption. So regardless, like how can we help increase adoption of WordPress as a whole? And then the second one is what can we do as product businesses to adjust our marketing to this reality? There's a lot of marketing adjustments we're having to do lately because Google loves to make our lives difficult lately. But also just in this new reality, what can we do there? So that's how we're going to approach this. Actually, also, I wanted to try to bring in a question from Jeff C. That I think is a good way to kick off your two takes on that conversation with Yoast and Noel. Jeff saying, when WordPress market share slows or decreases, why is there a subset of people that treat the information as if it's the death knell of the platform? Did you feel like from the conversation with Yoast and Noel that they were saying like, oh my gosh, the beginning of the end is now? What was your take overall? Let's start with Rich. How did you think about that conversation?
Let's see, how do I say this? I almost, we're really passionate folks, right? Like we're really into this. Like this is our thing. Like many of us have built our careers on WordPress, and we're really, really close to this, and it's something we hold dear. So I do think that it is easy to get kind of sucked into this vortex of like, oh no, something's happening. Like what's happening, and then you kind of raise the drama level in a sense. When I look at market share decreases, increases, like I'm really just thinking about like the people using this thing and can they be successful? And if they are, then like, yes, like we're moving in the right direction. Like if they're not successful, then that's kind of my measure as a product leader and what we're doing with WordPress.
Excellent. Miriam, what about you?
So I'm old and I've been around tech for a while. And so I have seen other very popular pieces of technology start to weaken. And I think that Noel really nailed it when he said, we're missing the excitement factor. When WordPress started growing and we all got excited about it, some of us might be considered old. Okay, I'll stop saying that. It was because WordPress was brought so much to the table that didn't exist in any other product at the time. There were some other similar products, right? What else was in the CMS, the open source CMS market? It was Drupal and Joomla. But WordPress gave you the 5-step installation process and plugins and this burgeoning ecosystem of enthusiastic people and WordCamps. And there was so much to be excited about. And every release was exciting. Custom post types, right? One of them mentioned it. Like that was exciting. But these things
it was game changing.
It was game changing. It turned it into CMS and all these things and plugins like Yoast, which gave us all SEO capabilities at our fingertips. And all of this was game changing. And now I think from a product perspective overall, not just WordPress specifically, it's stagnating. It's not exciting. It's like now like tweaks and incremental things that are happening that like just, it's hard to be excited about it. Even us who are super passionate, and then let alone like people who are like exploring or newbies or whatever, are they going to get excited about it? I doubt it. I think that a product like coming from the world of SaaS, right? Because Static was SaaS and Elementor is SaaS. You never rest, even if you're growing. You're not like, this is fine. No, you are always fighting to grow, even when you're growing. And if WordPress is like, we're fine, but we're not growing, I think what Noel was kind of hinting at, and he can say better, like I think we're interpreting, what might be around the corner is a downturn. And okay, let's say, well, depending on Google's numbers or W3 Tech's numbers, like Crux or that, we're either 35% of the internet or 43% of the internet. Big numbers, right? So we could be like, well, that's fine because we'll like coast along and like we'll still be bigger than everyone else. But I don't think that we can allow ourselves to be like, it's fine and we'll coast along and we'll lose some market share eventually because there's not excitement. So it's okay. And I think Yoast is exactly right that we're missing marketing. As a product, as a platform, and as an industry, we don't have a marketing function. We had some efforts that like didn't go anywhere for various reasons. And I think it was fine. That was fine for a while we were like growing because of enthusiasm. But now we have other very powerful products out there that are investing a lot of money in their marketing. And we as an industry don't have that. We also might assume that we're all competing with each other. And so for that reason, we don't have to like market WordPress, but I really think that we do. And I am giving been, I'm just going to put out there, a marketing consortium of larger companies in the industry who come together, bring their marketing expertise, like Elementor, to market WordPress. And I'm just going to throw here a challenge that we all have, probably all have as product marketers.
I think,
yeah.
I think an interesting point to what you're saying about it not having the game-changing features, I think there's been an impression lately that core is kind of playing catch up to things that page builders and other plugins have already figured out how to do really well. And so the releases in the last few years, while they have been adding sometimes very helpful and necessary features to core, they're not novel, right? Like being able to add columns without shortcodes wasn't novel. There were lots of page builders who figured out how to do that long before core could do that, right? Or whatever it might be. And so I think like that's why maybe some of the excitement isn't there, is because the innovation isn't happening in WordPress anymore. The innovation is happening in the product companies that build upon WordPress. And WordPress, the open source project, is kind of playing catch up with that. And I don't know. Feel free to object, Rich, and tell me you disagree. But that's sort of where I've been seeing a lot of that.
I want to chime in a little bit. It is a very contentious statement to phrase it that way. And I do feel that sometimes a little bit of our problem is the way that Miriam summarized it, saying that sometimes we're competing against each other. The way in which sometimes there's segments of the WordPress product area that is essentially like needing core to be bad in order for their stuff to be good. That kind of thing to me is sometimes a little bit of the problem, and not the solution.
But I would see that from a different angle, which is one of the beautiful things about WordPress and has been until now, which is that if you are a user and you identify a gap in WordPress, right? Because one of the mission statements, I think, of WordPress is like not too many, what is the line? I can't remember. Decisions, no, not options, whatever. Like not too many, right? It's not trying to be everything for everyone, because it's extensible. So if WordPress has, it's not even a weakness, it's, let's say, a weakness for a particular segment, or could do better in some way, then you can come along and develop a plugin for it. And that is one of the beautiful things about WordPress. It's not,
sure. I don't mean to say that there shouldn't be products that extend WordPress. Like that's how I've made my entire living, is products that extend WordPress, for sure. But there's segments of folks who really want Gutenberg to fail, like who really try to make it really, really clear that Gutenberg is not, and I keep saying Gutenberg, the site editor, block editor, full site editing, that whole section of WordPress core is a failure. And it's important to them that it's a failure in order for their product to look a lot better than it is. But I feel like we're talking around Rich. Rich, I'd love to hear your take.
I'm just kind of absorbing right now.
For those who aren't initiated, Rich is actually really highly influential in the direction of where Gutenberg is going, full site editing, where the block editor has been designed. He's really done a lot of work personally on the UI. Rich, what's your take on all the things that we've thrown on your lap right now?
Yeah, on all those things, at the end of the day, what Miriam said about like the diversity of choice is paramount, right? Like you can have WordPress in whatever flavor you want, and you can add anything and everything. And that's why, or one of the main reasons I would think it grew to where it is today. Now the topic of like the editing experience, like the WordPress editing experience, encompassing the site editor and the block editor and all the associated pieces, I think it's imperative that core stays unopinionated, but we do need more of the inspiration. And right now, where I think we're lacking on the inspiration is when I think of like inspiring products, right? I think of things that are very intuitive, that are like empowering. Like I want to do something, I do it, and I'm like, yes, I can do that now. I'm inspired, like to move on and to keep pushing. And that's where I think that there's the biggest opportunity on the product front. Now, if we get the product into a point where it is inspiring again, and this is just WordPress, it doesn't have to be just the editor, like WordPress in general. If we get to that point, then marketing efforts will have much more of an impact, because then now you're marketing inspiration, you're not marketing feature sets, and Elementor has been really great at this, like pushing like what you can do and what you can accomplish and how beautiful of a website you can build without knowing relatively or even almost no code. I think WordPress needs to lean in that direction to account for that inspiration that's lacking. And that doesn't mean new features necessarily. I think a lot of it is taking and refining a lot of the pieces that have been built over the years. We have a lot of capability is just now not in a state where it's inspiring.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I just had a call like right before this podcast with a startup, like a more advanced startup, and they wanted to consult with me about what they should choose to rebuild their website. Of course, their developers chose to build it as a React app, which is always a terrible idea. And now they realize they need to go in a different direction. And I explained why WordPress, and I'm obviously somewhat biased because I've been in the industry for so long, but I always keep my eyes on the other products out there. And I still think WordPress is the best option for companies like theirs and many other organizations because it will grow with them. They won't hit walls with it. They won't suddenly get hit with gigantic bills. It's highly flexible, open source, all of this. And I marketed it to them just because I think it's like the best option for them. I'm not trying to sell WordPress specifically. I don't get anything out of that. And so I'm doing this one-on-one. Other people are doing this one-on-one. I think a concerted effort around it could really reflect the strengths that WordPress brings to the table. It's just, it's not happening. And I just want to talk about the excitement factor. So since joining Elementor, I started leading our delegations to WordCamps. So I really get to meet Elementor users like face to face in that way. And in the beginning, I was actually shocked by how excited they were about Elementor and passionate about it. And and I think that probably has something to explains some of the growth of Elementor, which was discussed previously. And Elementor is a product that people love, but also because Elementor does good marketing. I mean, I think probably. So WordPress can do that too, if people come together to do it properly.
So yeah, I'm curious on that marketing front. Do we feel like it is people need to come together in the open source project to market literally WordPress, vanilla WordPress? Or is it more that we think more product owners should be following Elementor's lead all about at whatever budget level works for them and actually be doing more marketing in a way that brings people, like, for example, should Give go out and be like, not just trying to acquire people who already have WordPress as Give customers, but being like, you are a nonprofit who needs donations. You need Give and WordPress together, and marketing to those people who are not WordPress at all. Like, where do you see that? Is it just we need to market WordPress, or we need product owners to build excitement by marketing their products that bring new people to WordPress?
I think we need to market WordPress. I think product marketers need to market WordPress. I think we product companies are limited in being able to do that. For example, we can't use WordPress in our marketing material. Or I don't know how many people are aware of that, but there's trademark limitations on it. So even though
we tried to run AdWord ads for WordPress accessibility plugin, and you can't do it. No. But I'm like, that's literally what people would search if they wanted my thing.
Imagine and I can't. The strength of a company like Elementor that has such wide reach talking about WordPress in our marketing, clearly, but we can't do that. And it's so people are like, oh, you don't want to be a WordPress. No, we want to be a WordPress company. And if you talk to us, we'll say that we're a product for WordPress, except for that in a lot of our marketing materials, we just can't actually use the WordPress word because it's a trademark that belongs to other people who don't allow it.
Yeah. You can target that search just fine. You just can't use that brand term.
That word to describe what your product is.
Yeah, you could be found when people do those searches. But then you have to be clever enough to make people feel like that ad is relevant without using those words, which is hard.
You can put WP on it, but then I'm like, do people actually know what that means? Probably not. They're like, what's the weird WP at the beginning of this headline?
Yeah. So, Rich, I want to hear a little bit more of a direct response from you in terms of how do we actually increase WordPress adoption? I'd love to hear just what's your straight shooter response? How do we increase WordPress adoption? How do we do it?
Yeah, I mean, marketing is one angle, and I think that's imperative. But at the same time, we get a lot of people that come to find WordPress or come looking for WordPress, and they try it, and it doesn't work for them. I think that the product like I said earlier, needs to be more intuitive. Simple things should be easy, intuitive, and complex things should be obtainable. They should be possible. That's what WordPress grew off of, and or both of those areas. I think perhaps over the last few years we've leaned in on complex things possible without focusing on the simple things being easy and intuitive. So I say we need both. The marketing, you can send twice as many people to WordPress, but would twice as many stay? I don't know.
Yeah. Can you give us a little, be careful, of course, do what you say, what you can say or whatnot, but like internally at Automattic, how does this conversation go when it comes to it's not a secret that WordPress needs better marketing. It's talked about everywhere. It's talked about at WordCamps. It's talked about on stage at WordCamps. It's talked about from automaticians. What is the nature of the conversation about how WordPress might get better marketing? I don't know if you're privy to those conversations, but in your circles, what is the state of that conversation?
Yeah, I'm not privy to like the specifics of the marketing teams at Automattic, but what I lean in, especially is as we lead releases and whatnot for WordPress, 2 or 3 times a year. Those are kind of the times that I lean in a little bit further on the marketing front, and that's mostly about selling the vision of where WordPress has come over the last few months and where it's at today. Again, I think that's only part of the solution. I do think there's lots of opportunity, especially with Jamie, doing videos. But Jamie's just one person. I know there's a bunch of others that are doing videos too. But I like the idea of like a concerted effort of high quality. I think that's very imperative, like high quality videos. Like if you go to any of these other CMSs, the YouTube channels like Framer, Webflow, I would even count Figma really, and Wix. Like all of these videos are very top notch. Like they're like Elementor style quality, or Hostinger does really great videos too. Like it's really pushing out good content. And as a one-off here and there, some folks do create good content and it's great, and others have a different style that might not translate very well over the WordPress product in general. So I think that if we did find a way to push efforts together and raise that quality bar, then marketing team in general could be something impactful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think
we have a good question here from. I want to get to this question from Courtney real quick, because I think it's also because Automattic, of course, is primarily responsible for the WordPress project, of course, but there's a ton of contributors out there doing really good work everywhere. There's contributor days at WordCamps and things. Courtney is one of the people on the forefront of a lot of volunteer activity. She's asking, like, from a contributor perspective, how can we help WordPress adoption? I really do think the learn.wordpress.org project is really interesting, and Courtney's heavily involved with that. There's a lot of other initiatives happening on WordPress.org specifically. I think all of that is going in the right direction. Personally, my answer to Courtney would be like, yes, and more, like all those things that we should continue to have them. But they are on the backs of volunteers, which is sometimes the thing that trips them up a little bit. But anybody else take on Courtney's question here?
So that was actually the comment that I was going to make, which is that I think there is a challenge here if there's not budget. Because while contributors can do that, and there are a lot of great people who are making interesting YouTube videos that like show how to, cool things that you can do with WordPress or various plugins or tools within the WordPress ecosystem. The reality is, when you think about some of the other CMSs that WordPress competes against, is, like Rich, you were talking about making really nice videos, like literal advertisements to promote it. And then it's not just the money of like making it, but if you want to show them as an ad on relevant YouTube videos, you got to pay Google to do that, right? And or we're going to run a commercial during a high watch TV event or something like that to grow awareness outside. So I think that's a question of how much can contributors do, and how much does there need to be literal budget for this, and where does that come from?
Yeah, I would tie that together also with data that Matt Mullenweg shared at WordCamp Europe, that meetup attendance is really, really, really down as well. I think that's another really big avenue, especially for activating younger audiences too. And those meetups have had less and less attendance. that is also for me a stagnating data piece that's worrying personally.
I think the flagship WordCamps are also I haven't looked at it properly and nobody's really been talking about it, but I think the flagship WordCamps are getting less attendance than they project. As sponsors, we keep, we'll hear like we expect this number and then the actual number is less, and it feels like that's happening more than it did in the past. But
Yeah.
I'm finding that people don't actually know that WordCamps exist. I was just talking to that company and I was like, I'm coming to Portland for WordCamp US. And they're like, oh, what's that?
Yeah.
Like, that's interesting. And one of them was someone who's been in the web space for a while. So one positive development is that they decided to allow WordCamps to now have some budget to promote themselves. So to increase awareness, because we're like this echo chamber of WordPressers who've been around for a while. And we know stuff, but like the new people don't know stuff. And WordCamps are a great way to get new people and young people excited. I brought my daughter to WordCamp Europe last year, and like she was super enthusiastic and left with like WordPress stickers all over all of her stuff. But like, how many people are going to be like her? Ideally more, like when we were younger, not that I'm old now, apparently, but and we would still make the effort to go far to get to these WordCamps. So yeah.
I love this comment here from Mike. Mike was on the show a couple of weeks ago. He says, the kind of marketing we need to move the needle needs to be unrelenting, uncompromising, sustained, highly coordinated, and with a coherent and transparent strategy so others can buy in. Preach it, Mike. Oh my goodness. That's absolutely
So here's
what
an
WordPress
idea
needs right
I
now.
have. We should allow people to sell premium plugins on WordPress.org and take a cut, and that can be the budget for marketing WordPress.
The marketplace idea.
I mean, seriously, tell us, or we're going to ask people to donate money. Like, there has to be some way to monetize on WordPress.org that can then generate revenue that can fund the growth of WordPress. And that is probably one of the best ways to do it, is having a marketplace that sells and takes a cut on themes and plugins, just like an app store does. Right?
And or another direction could be that large companies that are highly dependent on WordPress and need and want WordPress to continue growing, and it's important to them, with this type of marketing consortium idea, everyone puts in some budget. Yes, I know that's a crazy idea, but these companies tend to have pretty large marketing budgets anyways, and putting in what to them is like a relatively small amount could have a big impact. But that would all have to happen with a very clear, coherent marketing strategy, not just tactics. I feel like WordPress tends to like drown in tactics. Like it's amazing that Jamie is now head of the WordPress YouTube channel. Amazing. And video is super impactful. That's one thing, right? That's like one tactic.
Yeah.
So.
Like to Mike's point, that's one of many that need to happen. Yeah.
And today we do have the 5 for the Future efforts. So, and that's, I'm pretty confident that's what Jamie is a part of. So it's interesting, to be able to, like, if we took one of the great creators, content creators from Elementor, one from another host or so, and try to have those folks work together, put together the plan, and really start pushing things forward as part of 5 for the Future, so that there's less messiness and more just leveraging what's there today. Potentially that is an interesting path forward.
It could either work within the WordPress project, but based on the history of how marketing initiatives have gone so far, where their hands have been tied and shut down and like not given access to important information, hopefully maybe that wouldn't happen this time, like if this kind of thing moved forward. But if it did, then just do it externally and just like market WordPress, because that needs to happen and you can't wait for everyone to give you permission and the right, all that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Well, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, well, we all know that in a couple of weeks, many of us, maybe all of us, are going to be together for a contributor day. So perhaps there needs to be a marketing table at contributor day, and people should show up and try and figure out how to put some of these ideas into action.
That's a really great idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That would be
we should
really
coordinate on that. Everyone's going to be there. Yes. Rich is going to be there. Miriam, you're going to be there.
Assuming I can get there, but yes, that's the plan.
And shall we pop our other guests in? Find out, Noel, are you going to be at WordCamp US?
No, I'm staying in Ukraine.
Okay.
Yeah, well, you have a good reason. Yoast, are you going to be at WordCamp US?
Nope.
Oh.
I actually have a marketing conference that conflicts that I find more important.
So
Actual
he's going to
marketing.
be learning more about marketing, and then he'll come give feedback.
You guys
I
are
hope
like,
I would
do
love
more
that.
marketing, do more marketing, and then they don't show up to do more marketing. What's up, guys?
Hey, I'm perfectly willing to send someone to do more marketing if we find a way to lead that effort. I think that I very much agree with the comment you showed from Mike, that we need that sustained effort. The problem is that we need someone to lead that sustained effort, because unlike building a product, which I actually think you can do by committee to some degree, good marketing campaigns don't necessarily come from a committee.
Totally.
Mhm.
Totally. Yes.
And it
I know this
probably
is going
isn't
to sound
volunteer
familiar, but I think WordPress needs a CMO.
It is. It does sound familiar, and well, in my past, there's been a path where I tried that for a bit. It was short lived.
Yeah.
No, I still think that is that to a degree, WordPress does need a CMO, but we also need to. I think that's what even more important than getting a CMO is getting rid of the distaste for marketing.
Yes.
I think that I was commenting this earlier. I think that Elementor actually shows that with good marketing and a product that's, I'm sorry, Miriam, I don't think is even better. You can actually grow. And I think that Woo shows us that with a product that has features that people need, you will also keep on growing. And I think we need to embrace the whole plugin ecosystem much more than we did. And for a while now, I think that both WordPress core is relatively in catch-up mode, and the plugin side of the WordPress ecosystem isn't as innovative as it used to be. And if we can get back to that and can get back to thinking about, hey, how can we do amazing things with WordPress, and how can we add the missing features that WordPress has to some degree to compete with competitors by building plugins that add those features, I think we have a fantastic story to tell.
Yeah.
And we can be everything to everyone.
Let's do a send-off. The thing we always end this show with every single time is best advice. You get one sentence, folks. One sentence. What's your one sentence from everything that we've been saying today? What's the one thing folks should take away and do after they hang up from the show? Miriam, one thing.
One thing, the thing that spoke to me the most, I think, out of what was said here is getting people excited about your products in general, right? Because we're also talking about within the WordPress ecosystem and about WordPress specifically. Excitement,
Absolutely.
what it's about.
Yeah. Rich.
I would say, focus on building, beautifully simple experiences.
I love it. Noel.
Let's get out of the WordPress bubble and compete with the rest of the world.
Let's do it. Yoast.
Try a new plugin every week if you're in this ecosystem, and see the new stuff.
Some kind of masochism.
No, but there is a lot of very cool stuff happening from Accessibility Checker, which Amber's team is building, which is amazing, to things like, well, and I'm not just here to promote the products that we've invested in, but
here we go.
Things like Personalized, but Altis is a good example. There's a lot of very cool stuff happening in the space that I don't think everyone sees, and I think that it's up to us, all of us, to be excited about the new stuff and to show people that you can do very, very cool stuff with WordPress.
Somebody writes a shiny new plugins blog every once in a while. Somebody should look that up. Amber, one thing.
Okay, so my best advice related to this conversation is that you should show up for Contributor Day. Even if you can't contribute for other things, there's like at least one of those near-ish you a year. Go for that one day and see what you can do to get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. My one piece of advice for all product folks out there is if you don't have a piece on your site right now that says, why choose WordPress for X, for whatever your product does, write that article today. Write that article and promote it all the time. We have one on Give that says, why WordPress for fundraising? We promote it all the time. Why WordPress for whatever your product does? Why WordPress is great for accessibility? Why WordPress is great for SEO? Why WordPress is great for page building, I guess. More or less. So
Yeah,
those types
Rich
of
has
things.
a great example. I'll
Why
throw it
WordPress?
in the YouTube chat if people want to go check out Rich's Why WordPress.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
So thanks so much, everybody. This was super exciting. I love seeing all 6 people on the show here. And everyone, thanks so much for your comments. This is our last one for this season. We're taking a little bit of, oh no, it's not. No, we have a surprise episode next week. I forgot. Next week, we're actually having Kevin Geary on the show to talk about how to get excitement around a product launch. He's launching a new thing called Etch. He's actually, I feel like we almost mentioned his name several times today, honestly. But he has a new thing called Etch, and he's been really pumping it in a really interesting way. I think it's a great way to talk about marketing your product launch. So we're going to talk with him next week. Tune in next week, Wednesday at noon Eastern. And thanks, everybody, so much. We'll see you next time.